Well, it was a very tight session, but Bieler finally comes away with the pole.
Alrighty then, so no pole position point for Menu once again, as of which it is Bieler in the Audi A4 who once again sits on pole ahead of the two Renaults and Thompson. I qualified 7th, I think, in the end of that session, so not quite as good as my first qualifying session, but either way, still reasonable pace, and I'm at least predicting I'll be able to get up to the front. Although technically my qualifying lap was basically screwed by Menu being in front of me. He probably knew I was there, but he just didn't bother to get out of the way when I was setting the lap. I was able to improve on the qualifying lap I set before, and already one of the Audis has dropped back, as I'm immediately up into 3rd position, and already making some contact there with one of the Audis, as Menu now goes up into the lead, followed by Thompson in the Honda. And it is fair to say Honda have definitely shown some pace here, and yep, I was in a very bad spot there. Yeah, that was definitely a mess, with me being on the outside lane. I mean, with me being in the outside groove, that just did not go the way I wanted it to. And now I've had a spin. Well, this could be where my luck runs out, but either way, it doesn't matter because I've already achieved 7th heaven at this stage of the season because I already have 7 wins under my belt. It looks as though the win streak probably is going to end at 7. Of course, domination never lasts forever, as I know very well. But again, it was nice while it lasted. So back up into 6th position once again. Looks as though this could be where I need to play the offense instead of the defense. But either way, I am up into 5th position and closing in on the leaders. And just managing to clear Plato there in the second of the two Renaults, almost losing control of the thing entirely, as this time I'm on the inside groove, making sure I hold on to my position. I am clear of Plato and I distracted myself. Oh well. Well, at least I can say my teammate is running good, because he's currently running in 6th. Also, is that one of the Audis I just saw there? Sorry, no, one of the Nissans. I got a feeling it must be Anthony Reid, because David Leslie is up ahead of me. So, trying again to clear Jason Plato. I managed to do so successfully this time. I knew the domination wasn't going to last forever, but I am closing in on David Leslie, as this time I step on the brakes going into Paddock Bend, because I don't want to spin again, and maybe for once I might be able to set a proper lap time in this race. So, currently running in 4th position, and trying to keep a hold of this car as much as I can, at least trying to get myself up to the podium. I think Menu by now has probably already put himself out to quite an extendable lead. Now, as I can see, James Thompson there in the Honda. Looks as though Leslie is actually passing Thompson for second now, so Leslie must have a pretty good car early on, the way I see it. That must be a pretty fast race car, that Nissan. At least in the second race, that is. And a little bit of contact there with Thompson as I overtake him. I'm now up into the podium spots. It looks as though Menu is technically the leader of this race. Of course, I had a feeling this might be where the domination could potentially end. But either way, it doesn't matter because I do have a 30-point lead going into this race. And it is and it is fair to say that if Menu does manage to beat me at this stage, then it's fair to say I'll only lose 3 points. That's about it. Although in saying that, I am closing in on Menu again, so something tells me I could potentially win 8 in a row. Which oddly enough is a streak that I can say is only beaten by 2 other drivers that I know of. You of course have Sebastian Vettel, who won 9 races in a row almost a decade ago now. You have Sebastian Vettel, who won basically 9 races in a row at the end of the 2013 season in F1. And the other driver I can think of who's had a winning streak go on for longer than that is Richard Petty, because he won 10 races in a row in 1967. And especially since NASCAR nowadays is certainly more parity based, it's unlikely to straight up impossible to see anyone else have the level of domination the King had in 1967. I mean, even though the Daytona 500 that year was won by Mario Andretti, who apparent as it might be also won the Indy 500 who apparent as it might be also won the Indy 500 2 years after that. It's fair to say that if I do manage to make this my 8th win in a row, then it is fair to say I certainly picked a good car in terms of me effectively having the early season advantage. But anyways, it took me 8 laps to get back up front, and now I'm actually running in the lead once again. Not too surprising considering how staggering my qualifying pace has been up to this point in the season. And it is fair to say at this stage of the season, yeah, I think that was Derek Warwick who I just overlapped there. And I think he is running in last, the way I see it. Oh, fuck my ass. Also, by the way, that straight leads on to the Grand Prix circuit. To anyone who is curious, that straight you just saw there, it leads onto the Grand Prix circuit. It also leads you into the middle of a forest. But anyways, 11 laps into the running, and I spin again. And there goes Thompson now, who is suddenly able to launch himself up into the lead now, as I force Jason Plato out of the way there through Druid's Corner. And it is fair to say Thompson definitely has a fast car here today. And it is fair to say that when he clinched second here, it certainly wasn't a fluke. In the previous race. Must be said, that Honda has definitely got some pace here, I will admit. As he is now trying to overlap the Vauxhall. I get a little bit of contact there from Menu, who was also getting a bit frustrated there, staying behind the silver Vauxhall of Derek. But either way, I am back up front. And it looks as though this could be the unprecedented 8th win in a row I was not thinking I would get. But either way, fuck my ass. But either way, I don't think it really matters too much because, well, even though I'm spinning round a couple of times, I am managing to build up a lead over Thompson and Menu. And it is fair to say Thompson could potentially win this race if I just basically continue making the mistakes I have been making at this stage. But as long as I don't, then to a lot of you who thought for sure there was going to be excitement at this stage of the season, I can assure you in saying there probably isn't, because, well, I'm leading up front once again, and it looks as though heading into at least Alton Park, I'm probably going to hold on to my race lead, or my winning streak at this stage. Although it is fair to say the Volvo is definitely giving me a much easier time compared to what I had with the Audi. Here at Brands Hatch, and that's basically a statement, the way I see it. Also, it was actually nice to see Calvin Burt running up inside the top 6 early on in the race, even though I'm quite sure he will fall back later on in the running anyway. Which is a bit of a shame, but either way, still early on in the season, and it is fair to say he's got plenty of time to at least try and score a podium. Well, at least get a top 5 finish before the end of this one. And it is fair to say, so far at least, I've made a good choice by going along with choosing the Volvo. And it looks as though at the moment like this could potentially be my 8th consecutive win in the season so far. 8 wins in 8 races. As annihilating as that might sound. But either way, it's certainly fair to say there's an element of replication from essentially the domination Menu had in real life in the 1997 season, because well, the Renault Laguna that season, in terms of its speed, it was basically a space shuttle. in terms of how much speed it had. And of course we all know precisely how fast the space shuttle was. And I'm also fortunate enough to say in my lifetime I'm old enough to remember the space shuttle because it was very much a part of my childhood. And the other reason I remember it is because, well, as a child, I did actually have a poster of a space shuttle in my bedroom for a number of years. I also had a model of the Space Shuttle Discovery, I think, which is technically the model that replaced the Challenger because, well, I'm not going to go into details about what happened to the Challenger because, well, most of you already know about the full and tragic story of that. But yeah, anyways, you know, going back to Menu's domination during the 97 campaign, it is fair to say, in terms of the speed I'm making, it was basically a rocket ship. Even though many people would often say the space shuttle was more like an airplane rather than a rocket. But to an extent, I still think the space shuttle was a rocket, and technically for someone who does have a somewhat bizarre fascination for the history and astronomy of our solar system and about basically knowing what moons they have and don't have, I do tend to take quite a moderate interest in the planets whenever I have the time to. And even though the space shuttle never did make it up to the moon because, well, as I said before, the space shuttle was more of an aircraft rather than a rocket ship because of the way it was designed. And many people could also argue the space shuttle design was partly inspired by the Concorde, in some instances, of course. At least with, you know, at least with the wings the space shuttle had. You could probably tell they were partly inspired by the Concorde because, well, the Concorde did have a similar design to the space shuttle in terms of its wing design. And that's partly the reason why many people often say the space shuttle was more like an airplane rather than an actual rocket ship. And also because, well, it was essentially made more for low Earth orbit rather than for moon or planetary orbit. But anyways, I've basically been ranting about this for the last couple of laps now, but you get the idea. TLDR is the Renault Laguna that season basically was a rocket ship in terms of its speed. Basically a car that had very similar speeds to that of the Saturn V, or essentially, if you are following up in NASA's Artemis program, you would know about the Falcon 9. But still, that's the sort of speeds the Renault Laguna that season essentially had, and why it was so dominant. It's also fair to say that was when the BTCC was basically just becoming asylomatic with the costs teams were playing at the time just with 2 cars. And basically, a lot of races back then were genuine rackfests. As in, you basically knew it was going to contain a lot of hard crashing. And that's more or less what one could argue this game essentially replicates, but either way, the Showdown, for me at least, in the early stages, it's definitely proven to be more of a cruise control run, rather than the hardballed championship re-emergence I had in the normal championship with the Vauxhall, because in championship mode you really have to be hardballed, and you've definitely got to be prepared to make yourself go for moves you wouldn't ordinarily make unless you knew the AI were prepared to more or less do the same thing to you. And that's kind of the ideology I've more or less been adapting here. Because this is definitely not something I can say that's been, well, orthodox. But anyways, closing in on my teammate once again. Looks like he has fallen back behind the leading pack at this stage of the season. Once again, basically dropping back to his usual 9th position essentially, since the rest of the field basically has... oh, excuse me. As I'm now putting these guys a 2nd lap down and putting my teammate 1 lap down in the process. So it looks as though I shall live to win yet again, but I know the AI will also live to fight another day. So it looks as though to start the season, the AI seem to still have an embryo in terms of when they will start winning, but I'm pretty sure they will eventually score a win at some point before the 2nd quarter is out. And since we are heading over to Alton Park next, I'm quite sure that will more than likely be the best place for them to basically re-emerge as race contenders. As I spin one of the Audis out, maybe trying to see if my teammate can potentially get past him, although I'm quite sure even if Kelvin does manage to get past him, it won't last very long, because the Audi technically is faster than Kelvin, unfortunately. But anyways, still leading here at Brands Hatch. I almost managed to save it whilst I was in the grass, and I can see the Audi still up ahead of Bert at this stage. And still keeping in control of this thing, as the Audi now unlaps himself, but it won't matter because I will essentially repass him anyway, and forcing him off track, and that also allows my teammate to come through for, I think, 8th position, unless it's 7th. Definitely one of those 2 positions, but either way, still able to hold on to the lead. And at this stage, it looks as though I am going to score 8 wins in a row to start off the Showdown. Which to me, I can definitely say is a more than perfect start in terms of essentially certifying myself as being a contender for the championship. Of course, we still have a long way to go. I'm not going to count all my eggs until they're hatched, and it does seem as though at this stage, like it is going to be another golden egg from the goose heading over to me, or basically another egg coming from the golden goose. As I now force the Nissan out of the way whilst I got loose there through the Jack Brabham curve. And 6 laps to go here at Brands Hatch. I can certainly say I've been able to annihilate my competition so far, but I'm quite sure after this race the domination probably won't last for the rest of the season, because the AI will be stronger later on in the campaign. But that's okay, because coming out of this, I should have at least a 33-point lead heading into the 5th venue of the season. So for me at least, I can definitely say the Volvo has made the Showdown a hell of a lot easier than it did with the Audi so far, because I thought for sure my win streak was going to end at 7, but this is the polar opposite of what I was thinking would happen. Even though I'm technically still wrecking myself in the process. But either way, I should have enough of a lead over the front runners, and it looks as though this will be... Oh, for fuck's sake. Is this where I'm going to lose the lead? Oh no, maybe not. Okay, maybe not. Okay, now I've lost the lead. Hi, Jimmy. Anyways. Yeah, I kind of knew sooner or later these spins were gonna cost me. But it doesn't matter, because my Volvo is just that much more superior to the AI so far. It appears as though it could very well stay that way at this stage of the running. And it does baffle me to say that it's not the 2 Renaults who are the best cars here apart from me. And yep, everything is getting aggressive here. It's entertaining, but it's getting aggressive. As Thompson is now trying to take the lead away from me. Really do hope I don't have any last lap mistakes, because if I do, then that could cost me dearly. I think I've just spun Bila out now and effectively given my teammate the position. Hopefully. I don't think I'll be able to catch him in the next 2 laps, as I am making sure I get through Paddock Bend this time. So, gotta negotiate this course now 2 more times before the end of it all. It does look as though at this stage Like, the win streak will continue to 8 in a row, providing I keep my shit together on the final lap, because God only knows how infuriated I'll be if I don't manage to do that. But anyways, I've had the dominant car. The two Renaults look to be nowhere in sight now. I pulled out enough of an interval to both the Renaults and James Thompson in the Honda. So it looks as though the win streak will continue to 8 in a row. And it is fair to say I'm having a much easier time with the Volvo than I was with the Audi. So I am glad to say I picked for Volvo. And there we go, 8 wins in a row.
The new Volvo driver is really storming this season, and another victory moves the team further up in the Constructors' Championship. Let's have a look at the final race positions.
And there we go. So, won by 6 seconds in the end over Thompson. Menu was third, followed by Plato, Tarquini, Bintcliffe, Burt and David Leslie, who completes the top 8. I can definitely say Kelvin made quite a good effort to get himself up to 7th in the end. Oh, it was Beeler I spun out. Okay, well, anyways. So, Beeler ended up finishing 9th as a result of me spinning him. Tim Harvey was 10th, followed by Anthony Reid. Then we had Will Hoy in the Ford Mondeo, followed by Patrick Watts, the 2 Vauxhalls, and Paul Radisich finishing last. Let's now move on to the points.
Today's race is over. Let's see the championship table. A big lead for the new Volvo driver then. Surely he can't win the championship in his first season.
I might surprise you, Tiff. I don't want to be cocky and say that sort of thing, but I might surprise you, Tiff. Still, this is definitely way more points than I could have anticipated. Since I now have a 35-point lead over Menu, surely this cannot continue into Brands Hatch. Meanwhile, let's move on to Brands Hatch for rounds 9 and 10 of the campaign. Let's go!